So you're now a music promoter and a manager, but tell us a bit about how you got into music. Like, where did your love of music come from?
I guess the love of music initially came from just actually going out to gigs and being like in love with music as such. Um, and sort of the career then drifted into, well, I love music. I'm bang average at actually performing. So let's shift that focus into, that energy of love for music into a different sort of fashion. So I started sort of doing music journalism. So wrote for a few people like Boot Music, Gigslarts, and things like that. Like the few online blog. It was
Yeah.
very much the era of like mid to late like 2010s where like music blogs were like king in terms of breaking an artist, and it was sort of like I looked at that and was like, that's what I want to look at. And that's a sort of foot in the industry of what, covering events. Like I remember covering like sort of Boardmasters, All Points East, Victorious
Oh, great.
Festival,
Yeah.
like right at sort of the infancy of a lot of those events. And, getting to know artists like Tom Grennan through like interviews and things like that, which is great opportunities. Um, and then whilst I was doing all of this, it was actually, I guess I know I do this thing where I go off into stories and then just massively switch off into tangents.
No, that's good.
Um,
That's what we like on a podcast.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, once everyone always says to me, like, once I get started talking, I just end up just sort of just reeling off
Well,
loads of
you're the
things.
ideal podcast guest then.
My introduction into music is really sort of quite weird, actually, with all this going on with, the love of music and writing for, like, journalism and things like that is, um I it starts off with a bit of a sort of, I guess, sad story as such. I don't know. I don't know whether you how you describe it. But basically my route into promoting and like going into music promotions, I this is weird. This is a story I've probably never told outside my circle. So I broke my jaw. I got like jumped on a night out in like
Oh, blimey.
nearly like 10 years ago now. And I broke my jaw to basically like 4 guys sort of, I was waiting for a taxi completely unprovoked,
Crazy.
literally just attacked, like, and then that gave me a bit of like time off work, because I'm obviously recovering. Um, and I used that time to go, on a support tour with one of my friends' bands. Um, where I learnt loads of bits about like, the day-to-day and running of the industry, and, went on to sort of, that tour covered pretty much the length and breadth of the country, including like Electric Ballroom in London. Those are just like figure points of, and like, some iconic venues like, Joiners in Southampton, Boiler Room in Guildford. And I remember those things and being like, seeing what, regional and national promoters are doing, and actually I learnt things whilst I was
Yeah.
sort of doing that. And so, um, yeah, that's where sort of like I then spent maybe about 6 months going, "I wanna do this," and didn't really know sort of the way in, to doing like, music promotions and putting on shows and all those basic, like, I knew the basics, I just didn't know how to. It was like, well, you know, who should I book? What did I do? Like, those sort of things. And it got to a point where I was sat in a pub with my best friends, and they were like, well, literally, one of my best friends, Connor, was just like, "Mate, you've been banging on about this for so long. Either do it or shut up about it." It was just like it's got to the
Can always
point now,
trust your
mate,
friends
where
for some honest advice. Yeah.
yeah, it was a real like honest
Yeah.
9 o'clock, 10 o'clock in the evening, like, will you stop talking about this and either do it or don't? Like, just shut up about it. Um, yeah, and then that led to me literally that next day emailing my local music venue, which is the Wedge Rooms, in Portsmouth, and Jeff, who runs that, somehow, like, in his massive backlog of emails, saw something of, he has told me the story of like, there's a bit of passion in my email, and he was just like, "I'll give him a chance." And then,
Amazing. Yeah.
years later, we're still laughing about that moment.
Oh, incredible. Well, tell us about the first event you ever promoted. Like, was it a success? Did no one turn up? What was the sort of how did
Um,
it go?
yeah, it was actually really good. It was weird. It was like a Wednesday night, in September. So it was about sort of like 2 weeks after Victoria's Festival. So, the music in some ways, music scene, people are financially recovering from a festival
Yeah.
and things like
Yeah.
that. I think it was 100 cap and we sold about like 70 tickets. So it was like
Okay. That's decent
success
size
in
for your
my
first one. Yeah.
yeah, absolutely. In my opinion, a great success. It led on to me doing more, so it couldn't have been that bad.
Yeah.
It was a shamefully, I think all three bands that did it don't actually exist anymore.
Oh,
Which,
really?
yeah, which is a bit of a
So what did you do? You just got a local band, local venue, just said, "Look, I'll promote your show. I'll just put the tickets everywhere." Is that how it worked?
yeah, it was weird. It was like the headliner was a local artist that I had heard of, liked, sort of, listening to, and then I booked 2 bands that was from outside the city. Um, one was from Brighton and one was from Guildford. And it was more of a thing of I sort of went along the line of, well, if I like it, I assume someone else will.
Yeah.
Um, and that's sort of how I sort of approached promotions for a very long time is, you know, if yeah, I trusted my gut of if I like it, hopefully someone else will.
Like, we have quite a few musicians who put on their own shows, so they promote their own shows. Like, what sort of advice would you give them? Because it's obviously very hard to get people in the door.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's the initial thing I would say to artists that want to put on their own shows. The DIY shows are always really great, and the best thing about an artist putting on their own show is their passion. Like no one is more passionate about their project than the artist.
Yeah.
Um, and I think it's just actually think about what you're trying to do, whether you're trying to sell it, like what you're trying to sell as such. So it's you know, our audiences do sort of go and struggle from a point of if they always feel like they're being sold something. So maybe offer something that's a little bit more than just a show experience
Okay.
of, I guess, the bog standard free band bill. It's the
Yeah.
standard thing that you'd see every day. I know that's really vague, but it's just like the best way to it's all about marketing and how you
Yeah.
market yourself. And, if you've got that fan base there, then utilize that the best you can. Um, and do not ever just assume, I'll put this show on sale, people will
People,
buy
no.
tickets because
Yeah.
I've put it on sale. It doesn't really work like that. Um, I think in my history of, it's not as long as some people, I've been promoting, 8, 9 years at this point. Whereas like, I speak to people that have been doing it 30 plus years and they go, it's the ones that you expect to fly out are the ones that don't.
Really.
It's like the second you take your foot off that gas, like, I don't know, I suppose it's like fans it's wrong to call them customers because they're not customers, they're fans. But in terms of that product is I think they see through that sometimes. If you're not on it, they're also like, well, if you don't care about it, why should I?
Yeah. No, definitely. Have you had any shows that haven't done well, like no one's turned up? Because obviously promoting is a very difficult business to be in.
Oh yeah, like I I remember there was a show um with I won't say the name because it's a bit
Yeah.
harsh to the artist because you don't want to out them for a poorly ticketed show. But this was like going back probably 7 years at this point. But at that point, it was one of my favorite shows. We sold like 12 tickets. It was in 100 cat room. There was probably 20 people maximum in the
Really.
room, and it was my worst sold show, but it was so fun in the room
Yeah.
because those
That's
20
good.
people
Yeah.
actually, like, cared. Like,
Yeah.
those people that in that room cared about the music. It didn't matter, and I suppose I actually use this sort of wording in my management stuff with artists now is if you play like every show as Wembley to give, because if you give that level of attention when there's 20 people compared to 1,000 people, those fans connect with that.
Yeah.
And I do tell a story about Coldplay being like, pitched or like found when there was like 7 people in a room and 2 of them were the
Oh,
most
really? Were they?
important people. Yeah, like
Oh,
2
incredible.
2 of the people there were just the most important people, and they were the A&Rs that
Yeah.
signed them. Um, yeah, so like it sometimes is that. Yeah, don't get me wrong, promotions is a hard thing, and you're not every single one's gonna be the best success. Obviously, you're only ever gonna really talk about the great successes,
Yeah.
but you learn so much more from things going wrong or mistakes. I've sort of gravitated over the years to stop calling them mistakes and call them like opportunities. Um, just because, when those things happen, you learn so much more than if it went right every time, like you wouldn't actually learn anything. It would just be like, this is
Yeah.
easy.
Yeah. Well, you're right that it doesn't really matter how many people are in the room. It's like the quality, like the Coldplay thing. Like if you're an artist, you need to just give it your all, no matter how many people are in the room.
I think that is definitely the case. I think you give, every artist in the world has had an underwhelming show.
Yeah.
I think that's probably a guarantee, whether that's, the first open mic they've ever done or the first uni gig they've ever done.
Yeah.
You see those biggest artists in the world, they've all done something.
Yeah. Well, I'm from Suffolk, so our local celebrity is Ed Sheeran, and he
Yeah.
was just saying he would play every show, like no matter what day of the week, how many people there, he would just do it. Any opportunity to play, he would take it, and it just added up.
And I think, yeah, absolutely. And that like level of experience, like I've seen Ed Sheeran shows for years. Obviously, I've never had the opportunity to meet Ed yet, but I've heard some great stories about him, and the fact that all of those education of those shows has actually helped him towards the
Yeah.
fact that, if you can play, like it's one of those weird things. I speak to artists that are, you know, that have played like academy and arena levels and some of them even stadium levels and then when they get to that point, they're like, I actually can't do small shows anymore because
Yeah.
I'm so used to only being able to see the first fruit, like few rows, and it's like I don't really see many faces. It's just I can sort of do the show. Whereas like those intimate ones where you can actually see people. If you're like, I guess the example of that is like if you're playing a new song and you can see the people in the crowd are
Yeah.
just like, I don't care. Like that's gonna throw you off.
Yeah, no, definitely. There's one guy who's local. It's called Fraser Morgan, and he plays to like crowds of 10,000s, but he just loves the tiny, intimate gigs. Those are ones he still does them. It's like he'll go to a pub and play to 5 people, and he just absolutely loves that atmosphere. There's something quite special about that.
think I think that something is really special about that, and I think not just necessarily in music though, because like comedians do it all the time. Of like if they're doing a work in progress show, they'll just turn up to a comedy
Yeah,
club
yeah.
and just
There's that
play.
comedy club in London, isn't there? Like I can't remember what it's called, but there's like famous names go there just to try out the material, even though there's only
Yeah,
30
100%.
people in the room.
It's sometimes it's different, isn't it? Like, and I guess when you're working on, as a new artist working on new material, how do you really know if an opinion outside of label exec or
Yeah,
management and things like that,
yeah,
like or like the A&Rs, like after you're sending the music, like you want actual real people in a room, like actual music fans. Like, don't get me wrong, a lot of the music industry is music fans.
yeah.
It's just that sort of thing of, like, yeah, how do you
Labels do
get
get it
that?
wrong. Yeah,
Yeah, absolutely. I think
yeah,
there was the Lewis Capaldi documentary actually, which was on Netflix, where he was showing like some of his music to sort of the A&Rs at his label, and they were just like, "This isn't the one," or even I think even his parents were like, "This is not the one." And I'm like, I think I remember them saying that, and it was like some of his stuff from his second album that was like absolutely some of the best stuff he's ever done.
yeah,
And I'm just like, okay, but not everyone gets it right, and actually sometimes I think it literally goes back to what I was saying about no one's more passionate than the
yeah.
artist about
No,
their
definitely,
project.
definitely. So as a like someone who's working as a music promoter, what is the sort of state of the UK grassroots scene? Because you obviously hear on social media that it's really suffering, but what would you say is are people going back to do they want to go to live gigs? What's the current state of it?
I think that's really difficult actually, um, to discuss sort of the state of because, you see the facts of the, on the face of it, the music industry looks like it's booming on the
Yeah,
basis of, the most tickets ever sold or, the highest record of sales. And it's like, yeah, but that's really inflated to the stadium and arena levels of
yeah, the top
yeah,
few
it's
artists.
like the
Yeah,
top 1% because the last couple of years when you're looking at it is, you know, Coldplay, all those Wembley shows and Oasis last year and
yeah,
then Taylor Swift the year before. But the grassroots is like, yes, it's really odd. It's thriving but struggling at the same time. Like
okay,
people are
interesting.
going out to shows. They are, but it's just more of in the state of the country as it is at the moment, people have less money. People have
Yeah,
less spare money, and that's as a whole. Like I speak to people and they were like, music promoters used to. A lot of them sort of came out because they used their spare student loan to put on a
yeah,
gig in their local venue. No one has spare student loan anymore. No one has, or no one has student loan they can afford to actually give to anyone else. No one has that spare cash. But
yeah,
grassroots music, I see so many different things of the independent sector. I think it was 2024. I don't know. Haven't seen the stats for 2025 yet, but I know 2024 was the first year that the independent sector, um, of the percentage of income for the music industry, it was over 50% towards compared to the majors. So, like, obviously, the total of the independent sectors is a mixture of a lot of
yeah,
companies and a lot of artists, but for the first time ever, it made more money than the majors, and it's like or a greater percentage, and that's
yeah,
amazing, and I think people are starting to take back control, and you're seeing a lot of the when you're looking at the grassroots music scene is you're seeing independent artists taking control of their own music or, indie labels doing things. I think over the last couple of years, you've seen bands that my artists have toured with, lottery winners, the K's. Like I actually booked the K's for my day festival, Golden Touch, a few years ago, and it's like that seeing artists like that get number one albums is a massive inspiration for that grassroots music
yeah,
scene, and
100%.
they've come through those hardworking venues, and they've played. I'm trying to think, like the K's have played Q-Bar and Stockton. They've played, all the way up there to, they've played the Joiners in Southampton, the Wedgwood Rooms in Portsmouth. They've played the 1865 in Southampton, Patterns in Brighton, Concord. Like they've played these venues and worked
Yeah,
their way up to the point where they're number one albums, and that's sort of, that national
incredible.
success.
Yeah,
Um, I think grassroots music, it's weird. That's why I say it's thriving and struggling because, we're still seeing venues close every year, which is an absolute shocking situation to be at. It's great work that people like Music Venues Trust and the Live Trust and, Association of Independent Promoters and Association of Independent Festivals are working really hard to keep this scene growing because or, surviving because you don't see the next to be fair, great point of the Brits last week. You don't see the next Sam Fender without those venues.
of course. Yeah,
Like you don't. I suppose every year Music Venues Trust do a post of like every festival a lineup that every time Redden Leeds or Glastonbury or whatever,
yeah,
and you'd be like all the artists that have played grassroots music venues. And I was chatting with Jeff from the Wedge recently, and he's like, the names that have come through this building, even as like either a headline or a support, like people that you wouldn't expect. Dua Lipa, did
yeah.
a support show there, however many years ago.
That's incredible, isn't it? Yeah,
It is. It's amazing. These people like cut their teeth in these venues before they go on to sort of mega stardom. And I remember I always give the great example of I think I paid £7. was like £7 or £9 to see the 1975
Really?
at Joiners. I think it was. I always lose because I saw them at Joiners in Southampton, and then saw them at like the Wedge Dreams quite quickly afterwards. It was
Yeah.
like 2012, 2013 sort of era.
Oh, lucky you.
Um,
Yeah.
and I'm like, I saw them there, and then going on to do them doing like Finsbury Park and O2 Arena and things like that. And you're like, you don't get that. You don't get that sort of
No,
end goal without those venues. And
without those venues, exactly. Yeah, they play
uh,
such an important role in sort of helping the artists rise up.
absolutely, even then, like I suppose it's a great thing of it's not even just musicians and artists. It's the actual businesses as a whole. You see, you've got promoters, sound engineers, like actually like box office staff, front of house staff that go on
Yeah.
to different things, bookers. Like I, I've got friends that learnt their trade doing sound at the Wedge Rooms. Like a friend called Joe Simpson that currently goes out with Nova Twins and Kid Capici and things like that. It's like you know he learnt, or he got his day to day experience at the Wedge Rooms, and then is now
Yeah.
on world tours. These are
There you go.
they're real jobs
That's
that
it. Yeah.
people
Or-
without these things don't actually progress. So, yeah,
Yeah.
no one, otherwise it becomes this. I don't want this to turn into a bit of a rant, but I feel like it is.
It can do.
Otherwise, yeah, otherwise it goes to a point where it's semi like an elitist society where
Yeah.
people are just being plucked straight from, with that their first experience of shows are arenas, and it's like, well, that shouldn't be the case. I
Shouldn't be
think,
it. No.
look,
No. Not
even
at
then,
all.
like to give you those skills, like I suppose whether that's artists or the whole industry as a whole, you need that sort of level of, if you're always looking at arena level artists, then are you like, we're missing sectors. It's a community, not like, don't get me wrong, there is like, it's in the same way as we need those grassroots music venues, we need the arenas, we need the stadiums. Like it's an
Yeah.
ecosystem that if you lose one, it all falls.
It all falls. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, really, really interesting take. So you also do management as part of your career. So tell us about some of the artists you manage.
Yeah, so currently it's a bit of a heavy management roster at the moment. So I manage the Clover Sets from Manchester, Crystal Tides from Portsmouth. I'm also working with Harvey J. Dodgson, who's a Portsmouth artist, um, and working with Dutch from the Record, who are from Brighton, but slash like they're also based in London. And then I've recently started working with a band called the Manatees from Southampton, but also once again based in London. It's it's that standard gravitational like pull towards London.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's my roster at the moment. It keeps me very busy.
I can imagine.
Um,
What drew
yeah.
you towards those artists? Like, what are you looking for as a manager? Like, what you like? Yes, I want to manage them.
So my journey into management is an odd one. Once again, I started
Hopefully, your
this.
jaw didn't get broken this time. But
Yeah, no broken bones or no
yeah,
injuries this time. It's actually, um, it's I never intended to go into management. Never like I didn't wake up and go, I want to be a manager. It's a lot of basically every artist I've ever worked with, I've somehow worked with in a different way first. So Crystal Tides, they played my second ever show, um, and we met at a chance encounter at a gig. Loved their music. I actually came for the support band, and then they were headlining, and just loved them. Just absolutely like wasn't really sort of when you just sort of in a venue and go, oh, that's good.
yeah.
Um, And then, yeah, we've been working together for, well, Christ, 7 years now.
Oh,
So
incredible.
real from their
Yeah,
infancy of them being a band to, last month achieving a top 40 album with their debut record, and we had got number one on the downloads charts. Um, but then, yeah, like that sort of thing. We did same for cover sets. We did some shows together. Then that sort of relationship came off the back of lockdown, where we kept in touch during lockdown, and it was just more of a thing of like, if you need anything, just give me a shout. Like, you okay? And we just bounced ideas off, and then eventually it came to a point where Bam was like, "Should we have a meeting about you being a manager? Like, this is like getting there." But I guess what I look for in an artist is that we sort of have our goals aligned and we want the same similar things. I think I really love that passion from like going back to what I said literally at the beginning of this, was the passion for the project has to be sort of really there. If I'm out there fighting for you every day, you know, I need to have
Yeah.
the same sort of alignment there, and the same passion, same drive, as so I'm not just sort of flogging a dead horse really. But every artist I ever work with, it's a real special connection of, we want the same thing.
No, it's a good answer. Well, thanks a lot for talking to me today. It's been great.